The road ahead will be long. Our climb will be steep. We may not get there in 1 year or even in one term. But America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there. I promise you, we as a people will get there.
Wow.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. Eugene Robinson is joining us here, joined the conversation. Also joining us in Washington, MSNBC senior campaign correspondent, Tucker Carlson. Good morning, Tucker.
Good morning, Willie.
How you doing, man?
Tell me, tired, but great.
Tell me what you were thinking last night when you watched Barack Obama walk out onto that stage in Grant Park.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean, I'm impressed by anybody who becomes president, particularly by someone who went from obscurity to president in 4 years. It says a lot about his abilities, which are impressive. It says a lot about the failure of the Republican Party to explain itself and to win people to its side. I think change is coming. I think some of them will be good, some of them won't. I cover politics. I'm impressed by victory. I'm less impressed by some of the coverage. I think the implication that this is a good country because Obama won, and you saw that implication on the page 1 of the New York Times, among other places, is annoying, maybe offensive. The idea that, had McCain won, we would have somehow failed an important moral test. Or, it wasn't a terribly good country yesterday, but it's a great country today. I mean, no election is in this country anyway, is a referendum on the moral character of its people. They're just the choices just aren't that stark, and there's something offensive about that.
I'm not sure
I would disagree, actually.
So you would disagree that it's not? It wouldn't have been a good country if Obama had lost? I mean, please.
Well, of course, no. It would have been a good country if Obama had lost. But, Tucker, I know you can understand why. To a lot of people, it's not that the country had a test that it had to pass, but just start from the point of what the country did. You have to feel different. I have to feel different about the country this morning, because there are possibilities in this country now for my two sons that weren't there yesterday. The possibility of being president of the United States, and I mean, it was never there before. It's an amazing moment, I think, in the history of the country. And so, no, this would still have been a great country if John McCain had been elected. And in fact, I wrote a column the other day saying, this is an amazing thing, no matter who wins. But the emotions that I think a lot of people, not just African Americans, there's a lot of people felt last night at watching those events unfold and watching those pictures from Grant Park and watching and thinking about this country's history and its future were something special.
And I would never begrudge anybody that. I don't mean to, or begrudge anyone the right to be delighted or feel vindicated by Obama's victory. That's great. I'm totally for that. I love cheering crowds. I guess here's my point. You have to allow for the possibility that there are people out there who made this choice based on things other than America's history, right? Or Obama's place in it, who made it based on whether they agreed with Obama or not on his policies.
I would hope so.
Right, well, that's exactly right. So I look at this and I say, well, gee, I didn't vote for Obama, but that had nothing to do with my feelings about the role of black Americans in America or anything. I just don't want universal health care. And it's sort of unfair not to acknowledge that, I guess.
Right, and I think you don't vote for president based on the arc of history and 389 years of troubled struggle with issues of race. You vote on who you think is going to fix the economy, who you think is going to make the nation safe. But in a sense, there were things happening on two levels last night, and one was on the level of policy and which direction the country heads in now. But there was this deeper level of history, and so it shouldn't, I think, have been the motivating factor in how people decided to vote. But once that decision was made, you have to see it and you have to appreciate it. And for a lot of people, I think that became a dominant emotion is not the word. It became what happened last night.
Well.
Right, exactly. A big part of the
I just don't think it should ever
in a way that was
Tucker,
I get that completely, but the flip side is that people who voted against Obama were somehow against racial progress or against making history. And again, I just want to be totally clear that that's an unfair suggestion.
Right, but I don't think but nobody said that. No, I don't think anybody said that.
Well, I mean, that's
at the end of the day,
if the headline of the Times is history is made by the election of Obama, then by definition the suggestion is I agree with that. But the suggestion is that if you didn't vote for him, you're against it.
It says racial barrier falls in heavy turnout.
I realize MSNBC is not the forum for this conversation, maybe, but I think it's a fair point.
We want to have it. We want to have it, Tucker. Go ahead, Bart.
At the end of the day, at the end of the evening last night, what in effect this is, to simplify it, I would think, is a great country becoming even greater. With this momentous election yesterday, with the result of this election yesterday, we have a president-elect who 24 hours after he gave an electrifying speech to the 2004 convention in Boston, went to Logan Airport to fly back to Chicago because he was involved in a race himself back in Illinois, and was pulled out of line for double security because of his name and because of his appearance. That's 4 years ago. And now he's the president-elect of the United States. This is a momentous event. And I love you, but I think you're reading too much negativity into the Times front page and into the front pages that's in all of our minds today.
Well, I'm not reading negative. No, I'm not reading. I don't think it's negative. I just look. Here's my bottom line point, and I think you've just proved it by what you said. I think it's important to be able, moving forward over the next 4 or 8 years, to critique the Obama administration on its own terms. So if you have legitimate disagreements with President Obama's policies, you ought to be able to say so without being accused of or thought somehow on the wrong side of history or having motives that are impure or whatever. I mean, like, if you don't agree with, I don't know, the guy's foreign policy, that doesn't mean, right, that you're against electing a black president or whatever. Right? It's a pretty simple point.
Tucker, I can really guarantee that that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah,
I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm saying that, I mean,
I don't
seriously.
think it's obvious that won't be a problem at all.
No, it's obvious. I mean, because you don't, as president-elect, you get a honeymoon, you get a few days, but you don't get, you don't get 4 years. I mean, you don't get that.
And also we were talking, and Tucker, look, we appreciate this conversation, so it's not gang up on Tucker time. This is way I'm dead serious because no, I am, because these are conversations that we are going to be looking back at the campaign. We're going to be looking back at how we covered it. We're going to be questioning ourselves and others on many levels, and it'll be good for us. And I will tell you that throughout the campaign, Tucker, you're right. There were nefarious, ulterior motives to campaign tactics that were unfairly characterized. And I think
that's for sure.
Yes, and I think that we should do a show on just that, because we will learn a lot. Having said that, moving on, I think this is a moment in history that we can comment on, we can analyze. This is a country born on slavery, and we have a black man in the White House. I think we can celebrate that moment without saying, if you didn't vote for him, you were against a black man being in the White House, or the concept of it.
I agree with that completely. And I live here. I'm from here. Yeah. I want Barack Obama to be the best president we've ever had, and I mean that with total sincerity. I've got 4 children. I mean, I think Obama is a lot more reasonable than a lot of people in his party. I like him personally. I'm impressed by his political skills. I'm not attacking Obama. I know you're merely not. I hope we can just tone down the emotion. I still am troubled by what happened, frankly, to Hillary Clinton, someone I would never vote for, but I felt it got too personal in her primary battles with Barack Obama. And I just hope that the conversation at some point can be about, the ideas behind his administration or behind the opposition to it.
You know what? I think after what we've seen, that probably can happen, but it's worth questioning. We should be questioning everything, and I think that's fair. Barnacle.
At the end of the day, I'm still sticking with something that's been rolling around my system for 24 hours. We are a nation of dreamers.
Yeah.
We always dream. Lewis and Clark dreamed about going down the river and over the mountain. Wilbur and Orville Wright dreamed about flying. Jonas Salk dreamed about a vaccine. John F. Kennedy dreamed about going to the moon. Ronald Reagan dreamed about that wall must coming down. And yesterday, America dreamed about a new day, and they pulled the lever for this fellow who's the president-elect.